this little cage that I like.
My name is Saelo. I'm a designer and engineer, and over the past few years, I perfected the art of designing and creating jewelry from scratch. Now, with this skill set, I have a new goal. Join me on my journey as I aim to become YouTube's Littiest Jeweler, all under a company named Yo, what's good YouTube? Saelo here. This is the first episode, so we probably just gonna try to let this build. And so because of that, for this first piece, I kind of want more of a simple piece. Something that's gonna be unique, something that's popular, something that's witty, something that won't, be that much to manufacture. I just need something that's like for the boys, like the bros. Squad, some for the dogs. Yeah, bro, like this is for all the dogs.
Got him! Got him!
And even though I'm used to doing like high-end pieces, in fact, that's probably where the majority of my income comes from, simplicity wasn't something that I decided at random. It's actually a little bit strategic. You see, recently, the price of gold as well as fine jewelry has been skyrocketing, and that's been locking out the younger generations out of owning fine jewelry. On top of that, many of the manufacturing techniques are actually proprietary information, meaning that a lot of these companies don't really share that, and I mean, duh, why would they? But because of that has actually locked a lot of new jewelers out of really getting into the industry. Take that with a lot of jewelry being manufactured overseas, and then you start to see why like some of the pricing kind of is the way that it is. Luckily, however, whether you're a large company or a small company, we all have to use the same physics. And so because of this, I essentially spent years reverse engineering every single step of the process. Ended up spending a lot of time doing that and spent a lot more money doing that, and probably could have used that money for like a lot of other things. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if you can understand the physics behind a certain phenomenon, you can reverse engineer it. And so that's what we did. And so, with that explanation, I closed my eyes. I started to brainstorm. As my eyes were closed, consciousness falling deeper into a trance, I noticed a subtle stillness slowly starting to envelop me. As I kept falling, I started to notice the appearance of a mask in the distance. At first, the mask befuddled me, but as I moved closer and closer, I got a sudden feeling in my gut. In an instant, I knew this was a reflection of my ego. As I fell deeper, I started to feel an overwhelming warmth as I was slowly drifting into a cosmic nirvana. And Shuriken! Yeah, Shuriken. Yeah, let's make some Shuriken. There were a few people who wanted to know what I was thinking about, so here it is. Anyways, let's just go to the sketch. Of course, with every sketch, we start with setup. And I make sure to get tools that can help me use some simple rules of geometry. Straight lines are definitely a must when it comes to situations like this. Yeah, so, I don't know. I completely forgot the difference between 2B, 4B, 6B. It's been a minute since I done used charcoal, but I'm just gonna stick with a regular pencil, whatever. Not that deep. So when it comes to sketching, I'm honestly just trying to lay down something so that way I can solidify it in my mind's eye. It definitely comes in handy when you start moving over to 3 dimensions. And of course, as stated before, I'm using geometry to make sure that everything is symmetrical. And when it comes to the design of the Shuriken itself, I tend to like curved blades. I don't know why. I normally like straight blades, so, you know. And now I decided to have some stones set on all 4 blades on either side, and the stones themselves, I'm thinking about having them flush set. What that means is essentially the stones will be flush inside of the metal itself. I think that'll be a unique contrast between the geometry of the metal and the beauty of the stones themselves. It plays onto the symmetry of the 4 blades, which is what I want to emphasize in this design. Okay, so from here, I'm actually really liking how it looks. Again, with the sketching and everything, I'm gonna hash out all of the details in the CAD when I go ahead and design it on the computer. But this gives me a nice visual. So I'm about to go ahead and do the isometric view for this, and then we'll just move forward from there. From here, I'm drawing a 2-point perspective. That way, I can go ahead and sketch a box that follows the perspective lines back to my 2 points. This is what's gonna help me to create the Shuriken with all of its complex geometry in a 3-dimensional frame. From the box that I was able to create from the isometric view, I can then use that to create a base in 3D space. And from that base, I can go ahead and draw the circles as ovals. From those ovals, I can then use the same geometrical tricks that I used for the first sketch, just in 3 dimensions at an angle. And with these guiding lines in this guiding box, I'm able to follow the perspective of this 2-point perspective, and this gives me a new view to view what this potential piece could be. Now, those of you that are artistically inclined, you guys may notice an issue, and that's that the Shuriken looks elongated along one of the sides. And the reason for that is that my perspective box is more like a rectangular prism. Now, contrary to popular belief, I used to be really good at sketching and I used to not make mistakes like this. But anything that you don't practice, you definitely lose. But you know, I'll hopefully get it back as we progress along this channel. We'll see. Anyways, time for some 3D. Normally, when I do 3D modeling, I use 2 main programs. That's Fusion 360 and Blender. Blender for more organic modeling, but when it comes to the Shuriken, we're probably not going to need that. So I can just use some geometry, similar to what we did with the sketch. And so I'm going to go ahead and go with Fusion. Now, as you can see, a lot of this shape has geometry in it where it's symmetrical. So I'm able to just go ahead and design one of the blades and then just, repeat it 4 times and then combine them together. Now, when it comes to these stones, I am thinking of a flush setting, but I'm also thinking of going ahead and making this stone cast. And so essentially that allows me to put the stones in the resin instead of having to set them later on in the process, which actually saves a little bit of time. And of course, I just kind of use advanced geometry. It might be a little tricky here. We're gonna go ahead and talk about that in another video, but essentially I projected some circles onto this curved surface and then used that to figure out sort of like how I'm gonna house the stones. One of the major benefits with using a software like Fusion is that I'm able to use a lot of parameters, and that's kind of like the overlay that you kind of see every now and then. That allows me to put in certain dimensions and then just kind of label them certain variables. When it comes to flush setting, you actually want a little bit more material on top to kind of engulf over the stone. And when we're finishing off the stones, you're gonna kind of see how we're gonna take that extra metal and lip it over the stone. And right now I'm putting in these mini prongs as they're going to hold the stone in place for the casting when we go ahead and stone cast. And now I'm just putting the part that attaches to the bale, or the loop that attaches to the bale, and now I'm actually designing the sprue tree that's going to attach to the tree inside of the investment. And this is going to control sort of how the metal flows into the casting, as well as how easy it is going to be to cut off these extra sprue trees after the casting is finished. And so it's kind of like a subtle play on design, and it's just really understanding how design works and how the metal flows. And we're definitely going to go over that in another video. Geometry is a major thing, especially because we live in a three-dimensional world. And so because of that, pretty much everything requires geometry to an extent to actually physically work. And so geometry is a huge thing that I would go ahead and practice. And right here, I'm just prepping for the 3D printer. So I'm gonna go ahead, give it some supports, and from here, we'll go and see you at the printer. So this is my resin printer setup. And I know the shower curtains look a little dirty, but that's just because the resin from the printer is kind of sticky. So I mean, it's bound to happen. But aside as acting as a way to stop the stinky resin smell from like stinking up my studio, it also acts as a way to maintain the temperature of the resin inside. That, coupled with a heater and basically a temperature control device or whatever, you're going to essentially get really good prints every single time. Let me explain. Let's take this to be our regular resin printer setup, where you have the build plate on top and you have the vat of resin on bottom. Let's look closer at the vat of resin. Now, essentially, the resin is technically a liquid. And as liquids do, when the temperature raises, the liquid expands, and when the temperature drops, the liquid compresses. This contraction and expansion can cause different warps in the prints, as well as print failure. And with jewelry being so small, any tiny warps can go a long way. You can actually see a dramatized version in this print right here. Essentially, in my setup, I have a small heater connected to a temperature controller. This allows me to keep the environment in a certain temperature range, and in turn, that allows me to get pretty much perfect prints at very small layer heights. Sometimes I even go to 0.01 millimeters, not even a problem. I would have to say that temperature regulation is probably one of the most overlooked things when it comes to print failure, especially for like resin prints. So when you're experimenting, make sure to account for any loose variables, so that way you can get your phenomena to work for you. All right, let's get back to the show.
Gotcha. Alright, so it should be recording now.
Try to like just get, okay. So yeah, basically about to take the print out, everything like that. Make sure I have ventilation. The resin I'm using is a wax-based resin that's used for casting. Needless to say, it's kind of hard on the lungs.
Safety goggles are always important. Always. There's no other time of the day. It's always this way. Here. Okay, so now from here, you can see these are the two prints right here. These are for another project that I'm doing. I'm actually just going to take this little scavenger. So now, I take this and take it off like that. So basically, it's going to taking all these off.
You always want to clean off the build plate before you place it back in the printer, just so it's ready to go next time and none of that resin kind of like sticks on.
So now from here, I'm going to take off the support material, and I make it in a way where it easily comes off. But then I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to cut this extra little piece off.
It's important to take off the support material without damaging the piece. Remember, patience is key. After you take off the support material, now it's time to clean and cure the part. Essentially, I just kind of do that with like a UV light setup. Cleaning and curing the wax part is probably the most important thing when it comes to getting a nice clean burnout later when you're trying to cast.
Okay, so now from here, I take these two, fill them with some isopropyl alcohol. So, then you'll follow me over to the ultrasonic.
This is called an ultrasonic cleaner. It essentially uses vibrations to clean jewelry, and it makes this snazzy sound. This is a tub of vegetable glycerin. It allows the print to cure without oxygen getting in the formula.
Now, the downside to this is that it's actually denser than the resin material. And so because it's denser than the resin material, it floats.
To stop the prints from floating to the top, I essentially use this little cage that I made to keep it below level so no oxygen gets in. Now I'm just moving it over to the curing station.
Take this, I'm gonna put this in 10 minutes. So now, in 10 minutes, this is automatically gonna stop and it'll be perfectly cured. Alright, cool. Take this out.
Place this on top of here. Make sure the glycerin goes back in there because this stuff is expensive. And now what I usually do at this point is I put them in a little baggie just to keep the dirt off of them. These put them in their own individual baggies. And now you're about to see me basically I'm about to set them. Yeah, so essentially I just have those baggies to put the prints in to make sure that they don't get dirty again, and literally for nothing else. I feel like that's probably more suspicious if I have to give that disclaimer. Regardless, the point is I don't want to have to go and clean them again after I just clean them. Like, I feel like that's reasonable, right? Anyways, time to Alright. So yeah, so I use this to pick up stones. Now remember when we did in the CAD, we said that these are going to be 3 millimeters, right? And so from here, I'm measuring the stones and setting them in the resin for stone casting. In stone casting, the stones actually go in the furnace with the resin, and the metal is cast with the stones already in place. This saves production time down the line. So, moment of truth. Now there are some things to consider with stone casting. For one, the stone needs to be supported on both the top and bottom of the stone, and the way that you do that is just having a large brilliance hole, so that way the investment can support it from both ends. The other thing is that of course the stone needs to be able to survive the casting process, so just make sure the stone is robust enough to do so. Yeah, so now you can just shout, yeah. Alright. So now, I'll put this back in the bag. This is just a close-up view of what I see in my microscope, but now we're about to move over to creating the wax sprue tree. The process involves melting wax onto wax, so let's do it. So first things first, I'm gonna take my flask right here, and I'm actually gonna place this inside, like so. That's what she said. I'm actually going to measure where I would say the bottom of this hole, maybe the center of it is, from the base. And that's the max height that I would like, or that I want for this to be. Throughout this process, I'm constantly thinking about gravity, as the melted wax can drip on other pieces on the tree. I'm also thinking of how gravity will affect the final casting. That's why I'm attaching all the pieces at a slight angle. I'm also holding it here because I have to give time for the wax to dry. You have to be patient with this process.
Take this off.
Now I'm cutting off the top, just using gravity in my favor so none of it drips on the pieces. You now have to attach that sprue to that base, and that's where you're going to be pouring metal in when it's flipped around. From here, I just put on the flask, and then I actually tape the holes around for the investment. Ready for the investment. So here, I'm measuring out how much investment I need to use for this casting. Essentially, I have numbers that I occasionally go to for my size flask. This is something that you're gonna need to figure out for you. And no, this is not drugs. $260 grams each for 520 grams total. But just as I took all that time to measure this out, tragedy struck.
Mistakes happen.
Prepping the investment in itself is tedious because you don't want any air bubbles to get the best quality result. And of course, here, we chase quality. You're going to want to make sure that you get a really good mix on the investment. You also want to make sure that you get as many air bubbles out as possible. We're going for a really nice, clean casting every single time, so all of our T's and I's have to be, crossed and dotted. After the investment is poured in the flask, we wait about 3 to 5 hours before we cut off the tape and put it in the furnace. Basically, you kind of want the flask itself to be elevated so that way the wax could burn through and fall down on the bottom and then just melt away. The flask follows a burnout schedule in the oven to melt away all of the gases, and I turn it around about halfway through to release the gases trapped inside. After the burnout, I place the flask inside of my vacuum chamber, and that just helps it get a nicer, cleaner casting, and then I pour the silver inside of the burnt out chamber. And then I just let it kind of sit. Now, some of you guys that are somewhat familiar with the process may be wondering, why did I just kind of let it sit instead of quenching the flask in some water? And essentially, there are two main reasons. The first is that I cast silver, and silver, it gets very soft when quenched. So because of that, it's actually kind of better to just kind of let it air cool, and that actually makes it harder and more workable and more longer lasting as a piece of jewelry. And the second reason is because of stone casting. You see, the stones are still in the flask, and so when you pour that molten metal in, a lot of that heat gets absorbed by the stone. If you do quench the flask, the sudden thermal shock will cause the stones to, crack or explode. Haha, you see? You thought that was the last time I would use that, didn't you? So after letting it sit for a couple hours, I placed it in some acid designed to remove the investment. And it worked like a charm. Look at the finished casting. Now, don't worry about that heart piece. That was actually testing for another project that I had to do. But speaking of that other project, man, it burnt me out. I had to set over 300 stones by hand. On top of that, my videographer was also wiped dealing with life stuff. We both wanted to take a break, but with a deadline approaching for this video, we knew that we probably wouldn't hit it if we did. But then I remembered something. I'm aiming to be the Littiest Jeweler on YouTube. And so that means that when it comes to jewelry, at least on this channel, we lock in. We start by cutting each piece off of the sprue. I use a combination of this mosaic wheel as well as just a hacksaw. And with the combination of these two, I can take them off quickly and efficiently without damaging the piece. From here, I use an industrial sander to go ahead and sand down those nubs. Of course, I'm being very conservative with it. Again, don't want to damage the piece. Last thing that you want to do. Next, I throw it in my pickle pot to get rid of that black oxidation that came from casting. This is normally how you would clean silver to get it to that nice shine again. We move over to the bench and we place them on shellac. That way I'm able to finish the stone housings without damaging the piece or holding it in a weird way.
I'm going to use this mallet to just kind of tap the extra material on top of the stone. Just kind of flatten it on top of the stone itself.
Finishing stones with a flush setting requires a little bit of patience as well as what we call a jeweler's touch. After I'm able to lay down all of the extra material, I then take an engraver bit and I go around the circle of it so that way the sides of the stone housing can shine as well.
So what this does is it like finishes the side of the metal to make it a little bit cleaner.
And this is just how it looks under the microscope. Moving on. Now I'm taking them off of the shellac so we can clean them and then go ahead and finish the sanding on the opposite end. I would say the finish of jewelry is literally 90% of what makes it. So taking your time to get a nice quality finish on a piece is essential, especially if you want to sell high-end. I'm now just taking this silicone wheel and I'm giving it a rough polish. This is because the silver is harder because we didn't quench it, so you have to do this extra step. After that, we put it in our magnetic tumbler, so that way it gets a nice tumbling, and that just makes sure that the finish is going to be even throughout the piece. As we take it out the tumbler, you can see that it's starting to get a really nice shine. But there are still like small inclusions on the surface or whatever, so we're going to fix that right now. This is called a hammer bit, and what it is it's like some metal that's like an octagon. When this rolls on the material, it actually causes the silver or the material to kind of push some of the metal over where you're brushing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to get all these little holes out. Hammering is a nice and quick way to get a nice quality finish. And what it really is doing is it's pushing metal over the holes. You can actually kind of see that here where the metal is kind of pushed over it. So we're about to go ahead, take it, and polish that out.
Can you see what I'm doing here? Put the polish on it.
Polishing, like most things in jewelry, require patience. But this is literally the step that sells.
That's how they look polished. Now we're just going to bring them over
Back to the pool.
Once again, check it out now. I would just take this.
The ultrasonic gets the polishing compound off of the piece, and you're just left with a piece that has a beautiful shine afterwards.
Actually, let me get a close-up on why you do that.
And from here, you can stop. The piece is pretty much done. But you can take the piece one step further and you can electroplate or e-coat the piece. Now, I know most people haven't heard of this, but this is one of the areas of jewelry where I've experimented the most on, as well as lost some of the most money on. So hopefully you don't have to. Lucky you. I also took the time to whip up one of those snazzy animations for a simple explanation. By the way, yes, that rhymed. Give me my props. There you go. Electroplating and e-coating uses a container filled usually with an acid solution that has ions of the metal or material you're using as the coat. If you place a metal plate in the solution to act as an anode, your piece of jewelry to act as the cathode, and apply a voltage to both, the ions will form a thin coat over the surface of the jewelry. Now that's about as simple an explanation as I can give, so now I'm just setting up to do this process. But before we jump into it, let's talk about Moje diamonds. You see, BusyWorks is like my own personal playground to make and sell products that me and my community like. Moje Diamonds, however, is a business venture I'm a part of that focuses more on wedding, engagement, and high-end jewelry. My business partner has connections to get precious metals and gemstones directly from the source, and of course, I'm designing and creating pieces there as well. In fact, we're working on some new product lines as we speak. So, if you're getting engaged soon or see something that you like, I see some of that money either way, so don't be afraid to support. Alright, back to the video. Yo, so I just wanted to kind of go over real quick what this is right here. So this is actually something that I designed. I'll go ahead and take the chain off real quick. And what it does is basically these shoot out real quick, if I can just boom. And what they do is they actually tension a chain. And the reason why I have them tensioning a chain in this way is because essentially when the chain is in the electroplating, sometimes the links, they aren't touching, and therefore the electricity can't flow throughout the chain. When you tension the chain, you're actually making sure that all the links touch and then all the electricity can flow through. It needs to be metal so that way it can survive going inside of an oven. In my process, I start with the ultrasonic, as the pieces need to be very clean to get great results. Ignoring those other pieces, I'm prepping the chain and the pendant for gold plating. I'm e-coating the pieces as well so the plating doesn't tarnish over time. The steam makes sure to blast away any fingerprints or oil that's still on the piece. And with the pieces ready, it's time to start the process. Let's go. These first two baths are a degreaser and neutralization bath, cleaning the pieces at an atomic level for gold plating. And as you can see, the gold plating came out stunning. I'm in awe every single time I get to do this.
You're just gonna take some paper towel underneath it and just kind of dab it to dry it.
You can allow the pieces to air dry for using precious metals. I'm just impatient. This is the e-coating that puts clear ceramic coating over the pieces.
Soak some dates. And now from this, we're just gonna let it sit until the jewelry looks bright and polished again.
After about an hour, the coating goes from white to clear, and that's how you know it's ready for the oven. I also coated the other pieces, but they're not ready quite yet, so we'll just focus on the gold pieces. The oven is the last step, and that's to harden that ceramic coating. After this, you can then just take it out the oven, put it on, and it should last. Let's see what the final product looks like. Yeah, so that's the piece. You can see that I'm wearing it right now, and it's pretty fire. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I feel dangerous. The piece is available using silver or gold, and as for the stones, we can use CZ, moissanite, or diamonds. Whichever one you prefer, just let us know. The silver version comes with an 18-inch curb chain, so you can wear it right out the box. Make sure you order yours now at busyworks.com. I want to give a huge thanks to the musicians and composers whose music I used in this video. Like, this music made the video. It's pretty litty. Some people may ask, Saelo, how litty? Type a 1 in the comments if you were expecting that. You can find the creators and their channels here, and I put links directly to the songs in the description. I personally used to be a musician, and music has always been a big part of my life, and so because of that, I will always have respect for artists and musicians. Let's just hope they let me keep the ad revenue. Talked to most of them beforehand, and they're pretty chill, but there were still a few that I couldn't reach. So, you know, hopefully we can work out something where I can continue to use their music in the future. And besides, if you do want to support me directly, the best way to do that is to buy some jewelry. That helps me to kind of expand the operation on multiple fronts. Plus, if you want to be twinning with me, then of course you gotta pick one up for yourself. Like, come on twin, what we doing? Lastly, please like and subscribe if you wish to join me on my journey of becoming the Littiest Jeweler on YouTube. Have more in-depth videos coming out on certain steps of the process. I'm also gonna start streaming the design phase as well as the 3D modeling phase on twitch.tv/busyworks LLC. Yeah, it should pop up. I'll put that somewhere, I think. Probably. I feel like I'm forgetting something really important, but other than that, make sure you make the most out of your 2026, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Oh wait, I just remembered. Safety first.